Hi, everyone, and welcome back here to the Longevity Summit. I'm Dr. Melissa, your host, and right now we are joined by a true global leader, Giselle Coy. She is leading the conversation where spirituality and science meet, specifically around DNA. And we are having this whole entire conversation throughout the summit, Giselle, about epigenetics, genetics, outer world, inner world, and I love that you are going to open up the dimension of this conversation that we've all been waiting for, because there's outer world, there's inner world, and there is kind of this what is beyond, right, our physical world that we're seeing as we are bringing the spirituality and the science together. So welcome to the summit. It's amazing to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I love this conversation. I love to start right off with a challenging thing that I'm going to say. Ready?
Yeah.
It's like everybody's feathers ruffled right off the bat. And that is when we have spirituality and science. Guess what? Consciousness trumps everything. So what do the spiritualists know that the scientists don't know? That fact, but I'm going to say not scientists, just science. There are many scientists who know that, and there are many scientists deep on a spiritual path, but science in general as a mainstream collective, you know, putting the seal of approval on it. Yeah. And that's the part that will eventually come to the top of the pyramid together, where we all meet, we go, hey, yeah, it's all about consciousness. Whoa. And many of us are already there. If you're watching this show, you're already there. So, but I do like that introduction, because it is true. And when you know that in your heart that our consciousness drives everything, yeah.
And so let's explore consciousness for a moment as a concept, right? Because typically we use the word conscious mind and unconscious mind. So it can be easy to confuse, like, am I thinking just what I'm conscious of right now, that I can see the trees outside the window, that, you know, my heart is beat, I can feel my heartbeat, or, you know, is it consciousness in that regard? When we speak from a more spiritual standpoint, help us to create a container for really how we can think about consciousness in a more expanded state, beyond just what I'm seeing and aware that I'm thinking of right here, right now.
Okay, I did a podcast one time on consciousness, and literally someone wrote me this long letter. It's like, and they thought it meant, like, they said, well, my sister has been unconscious for about 4 years in her coma, and now we're trying, and it was this whole science where they thought it was like all unconsciousness. So we're not talking about that. I'm using that word like the collective, capital C, consciousness, meaning wakefulness, awareness, a connection with spirituality, a connection with the cosmos. So I would just say another word is wakefulness. So yes, we perceive the world around us. And yes, is there more happening than what meets the eye and meets the senses? Yes, and that's where we get into the word that you and I were talking about earlier, the multi-dimensionality of DNA. The multi-dimensional, let's just take multi-dimensional. You want to just start there? Okay. By the way, if you don't have a visual mind, there's an artist named Jean-Luc Bozzoli. He's in Hawaii. I'll put a link. It's Bozzoli. He does a beautiful job of actually drawing, painting, and doing videos of what multi-dimensionality is. It's like images of underwater, like the whale song, like fractaling into the song of the bird, fractaling into a goddess. It's like if you can't picture it, look at his artwork, and he's such a gift to humanity, showing us what it looks like. Because so there's so many things happening beyond us, and our ability to tune into these higher levels is our degree of consciousness. It's the degree of our activated DNA, in my opinion. How much we can perceive, how much is going on in the world, because there is, like, DNA itself, there's like the ancestral part. There's the actual deoxyribonucleic acid part that is just the physical compound. And then there's the part that we are feeding information to that changes our God expression as a being. So that's the interesting part, where we actually change our expression as beings through the activation of this thing called DNA because it's an interface with God. Where do God and we meet? In our DNA.
Wow. I've never heard it described like that, and that is powerful. It's our interface with God, with our source energy,
Interface
creator.
with God.
I love it. Wow. That's a very phenomenal way to look at that, to think about that, to understand it.
And affected every second by the experiences we choose. And this is epigenetics, which you know, which is like every single thing is data input. There's a hummingbird right out the window right now, which I can show you. Anyway, everything is input affecting like our thoughts, our inner outer world, like you mentioned, the temperature, where we're located, the collective thought, the vibe in the room. It's just like endless levels of this ephemeral shimmering thing, which is our multi-dimensional DNA, just these antennas. We're just antennas reflecting everything around us, inner and outer. Isn't that cool? So why would we not just go all in with epigenetics?
Right. Wow. And what you just said, so again, as multidimensional informatic beings, right, there's this constant interplay with information. And so when we're thinking about how do we live as long as possible, as well as possible, thriving the whole way through, how can we begin to maybe kind of play with these inputs, this information, understand more about activating our DNA, and I'd almost like to call it like the God code in essence, in a way that's more intentional or supports kind of this, right, enhanced expression right here, right now, for as long as possible. Living as fully, looking as amazing, feeling as great today, and for as long as possible. Can the DNA support us within that?
Okay, if I understand your question correctly, it's like, what are our practices? Is that the question?
Well,
Or
Hannah, you know what? I would say this. So first of all, I know there are practices. Okay, so part of what we're talking about throughout the summit are things like exercise and sleep, right? And movement and meditation. So obviously there are practices that we can do each and every day to
oh yes,
already inform. I think what I'm wondering, because what nobody's really talked about thus far in the summit is really this kind of spiritual side where it is meeting with science. So from a spiritual context, is there a spiritual leverage point in activating kind of this communication with our DNA in a way that informs longevity?
please may I answer that? I
Yeah.
love that question. Please, okay. So this is what I love all this into. Okay, all the information in your summit, which is going to be amazing. Plus, let's take it into what I call spiritual epigenetics. And that is, okay, so you have your epigenetics from the viewpoint of precision, training, protocols, to be better, to measure, like it's like this high level training. Well, if you apply that to your spirituality, training to carry more light. And we can train ourselves to carry more light, first of all, by that intention and that thought itself. And then there are protocols that I call vibrational stacking. I also have some activations that I like to do. I have a whole list that I think really affect our DNA and our up-leveled regenerative systems, because high-level coherence is an organizing principle of regeneration. Right? So the deeper you go in your heart, the brighter your field becomes. Why do we meditate every morning and go into the 7 chambers of the heart, activate them? That is the actual geometry blueprint of God's heartbeat. It's a multi-dimensional geometric God spark, which we all carry in our heart and in our cells. So the more we go into that, make ourselves more coherent, the more brighter our fields become, the more activated we are, the more we access more of our junk DNA or whatever that is, that it's like massive that we haven't even barely tapped into. We're like a car on 1 cylinder right now. And we're doing pretty good, but we could do so much better. And we are. And so that's why this is so leading edge. I love the summit. I love everything that's happening here, because this is where it's at. This is the new It's called the new golden human. Some people call it the crystalline human, the Christed human. Like all these words, there's a lot of words that are leading up to this fully activated human.
Okay, so something really big just hit. So we're leading up to this fully activated human. And if I'm understanding, that activation is really about carrying more light, expressing more light. And so light can foundationally be activated through love, right? Activating the heart, coming into this coherence. We've talked a lot about that in some other interviews, brain heart coherence. And I think of that as like coming into this wholeness, this resonance of oneness with self first and foremost, right? In this love. So we're coming into this activated human. And yet, we are living through, which probably categorically one of the most disruptive times in humanity. So is light, is it love? Is it disruption? Like what is, so we're coming into this like really cool golden time, but yet you look around and some might perceive a lot of disruption and less than light, right? Some darkness, some grays, some different hues, some fog, some cloud. Do you mind if we go into that conversation for a minute to understand more about kind of contextually what's going on right now on this path to activating more of this full human that we're all here to be?
Okay, let's break that down into two questions. One is the collective humanity experience,
Okay.
and the other, what is light, kind of. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I heard there. Okay, so I believe that we are all perfectly in tune with the divine plan. And the divine plan is this thing that is just, that's exactly what it is. It's the plan that exists beyond all of us. There's always a higher plan at work. Always, 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 no matter from what viewpoint you're at. And from our viewpoint, the divine plan at this moment is that the human being is now, because of what's going on, all of this cataclysm events, that the human being is now actually ready to receive the quotient of light that can activate this higher human. So it's a moment in time. This is a galactic alignment. This is when this belt meets with this. We are literally getting these cosmic rays that are assisting us. So this is a definite moment in time for us to be able to do this. And now it's called the Great Awakening. Everyone's like aligning the pandemic. Can I say pandemic or plandemic on this?
You can say the truth that you know it's
okay. The pandemic. Okay.
Exactly.
So that is even, it's like, so there's this soup that's making this moment for the Great Awakening. And it's and that's a very multi-dimensional experience also. So the light is, that's kind of a confusing thing. And actually, everyone should have their own personal relationship with the light. And the light, some people close their eyes and they meditate and they see just like flashing light, like the inner light of the pineal gland that produces light. Some people experience light as just love. It melts their heart. Some people like it's a concept. Everyone has their own definition. I like to think of light as a code because it is a code. So our DNA is a code and the sun is beaming code to us. It's so simple. We are codes, and all the cosmic rays there's so much more than this little planet that's like this giant symphony all working together to bomb us and awaken planet Earth. The entire universe wants this little beautiful blue jewel to wake up right now, because guess what? We're like the lowest level, and the whole entire quadrant can't go any higher until this lowest level gets bumped up. So believe me, we have teams beyond our imagination helping to get this Earth ascended. Come on, wake these humans up. I mean, we can feel it. We're like, okay, it looks like really craziness, but maybe we're just not. So this is pretty amazing, right? Because that's what's happening. And some people are just like, I don't know what's going, it's like you can't really get your head around these times because so much going on.
Yeah.
So developing a personal relationship with the light, if you simply just go look into the sun, I'm a devoted sun gazer, morning and night, getting the codes of the sun on my body. It's very high level codes that are mingling with our DNA code. How cool is that? It's that simple. So just look at the sun. If you want to know what the light is, it's more powerful than ever. The sun is actually, anyway, let's don't even talk about the sun, because I can just talk about that forever. But the sun, hey, it's in the sun.
So the light as a point of activation for a higher human self. So there's one level of conversation that we could have, which we will have in another conversation, which is really more about this evolution of humanity. And yet the piece that is important right here, right now, is evolving into a greater lifespan. So let me ask you this, just, and this can be more philosophically based. Do you believe that we are able to, first and foremost, evolve into a longer lifespan than what we're currently experiencing?
Well, is immortal a longer lifespan?
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
Okay, well then my answer is yes.
Okay, so help to explain that.
Okay. Wow. So I had several experiences with this, but the one I'm going to talk about now relates to the book, which I have online, called The Codes of Immortality. I'm not taking credit for that information. It was delivered to me and I just delivered it to the world. But in that information, it talks about all of us, inside of us, contain this thing called the primordial cell. Okay, the primordial cell is talked about in the Kabbalah with the Adam Kadmon, which is God's image of man, not man's image of God. Think how different. Man's image of God is like this old man. God's image of man looks like Vesuvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci, that guy with his arms out. That's the Adam Kadmon body, the perfected man. And that comes from a primordial code. We all have it. It's in our diamond human A. We have valuable DNA because it carries the God spark, the DNA, that divine potential of Christedness, crystalline, whatever word you want to plug in there. Okay, so that that DNA, that primordial cell, since we have it, there's a map to go back. And if we use meditation, use decrees, use all these tools to travel back to our primordial cell and say, wake up, which we can consciously do, we begin to turn these on. And that's pretty cool, because when you get to the middle of it, guess what happens in the middle of it? Are you ready? You enter the state of suspended illumination. And that is an immortal state.
So as we begin to connect using tools like meditation to the primordial cell, we move into a suspended illumination, and that is immortality. And is that something that we are able to consciously walking around be suspended in that state, or is that more of in a meditative state we kind of can access these moments which kind of touch this stream, if you will, of immortality that we are a part of, right? And so we can dip into it, yet in kind of the physical wakeful state, we're walking around, we're running our errands, we're having dinner. Are we still in that?
I think that's a perfect description. I love how you said all that, because it is it's like the ephemeral DNA itself. So we shimmer in, we shimmer out. Now, some beings on planet Earth have walked in a fully illuminated state, a resurrected, fully illuminated state, and they never leave that. That is a potential. And those are the beings that we know as the great awakened ones. I'm not going to name the masters because it brings up religious ideas for people, and I'm not doing that, but there are masters we all know that have walked the earth that hold that. There are others that visit it. There are others that can access. Others like, oh, I felt it was. It doesn't matter. It's there. We have it. And the more we bring that into our awareness and practice going there, the more we turn into that, and we turn on all of our longevity codes that suspend us, in a sepulchre bath, so to speak, of wow, we are in complete rejuvenation on a cellular level through our intention, working with divine aspects.
So do you know of, are you seeing, bear witness to people that have been able to, now obviously, okay, I understand we have our spiritual masters, right? And I'm bringing it now into, again, back to longevity. So people who are actively touching these spaces and states, activating the primordial, kind of DNA. Are you seeing any of the rejuvenation, or do you know of it?
Yeah,
How it's,
I am seeing it.
Mhm.
I am, in a few individuals.
Mm. That's really interesting. I mean, I know that in different religious texts, right, there are references to masters and leaders and tribes that had very extended life, like several hundred years. That was normal. Like,
The individuals I'm talking about, they also are humans. And if you're in a body, you're still a human. And
right.
so you have human, and that means you have a personality. And the personality doesn't feel like that suspended illumination, because the personality is like this thing, right? That filters, that's how we see the person. But I am seeing youthening, I'm seeing skin, like turning younger. I'm seeing these things that I go, whoa, look at that. And I just noticed in my personal life with people I know that are really, really devoted to ascension of their spiritual path.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, there's so much that we do know, right? So like you said, from a scientific lens and lane, we can look at pathways, we can look at, how to turn on, turn off, upregulate, downregulate, how we can clean up these senescent cells, how we can enhance, right? How we can kind of reverse age that it's now been scientifically shown with certain protocols. And I love that. And so that's obviously what we're talking a lot about throughout the summit. And that feels good to everybody because we can see it, we can know it, it feels believable. And it's really interesting how quickly we will doubt our own connection to ourself and our source. Again, not making this a religious conversation, but kind of what else is available to us and what else can inform our biology? What else can inform the science? I mean, and now if I just take a little, detour for a moment, just even quantum physics and the observer created reality,
Yes.
there is proof, we absolutely know that the observer, kind of my thought, my intention, my perceived outcome that should happen, I'm already going to influence the outcome that does occur. And so while we know some of these things, I guess, Giselle, a part of this, I'm just verbally processing this because this all innately, I feel the bigness of this. And where I want to try to ground us and land this is how does this really big, something outside of us, something that becomes so easy to kind of dismiss or doubt because we can't see it, because we can't prove, like we can't just put our finger on it and say, that's it. How do we begin to access this in kind of a day-to-day flow that can create greater light, can enhance our longevity life? Like, is it meditation? Yeah. Is it a type of meditation?
Let's talk about all the things. I'm just going to touch, I mean, I'm sure a lot of your experts have gone really great detail. I'm just going to touch on some of my favorites, if I might, that I think do that. And also when you say this great thing outside of us, is it outside of us?
Interesting. Right.
Okay. So, and I also think when you said that, I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for our evolution. Like our minds, like we always see someone else as more advanced or whatever, more than we are, when actually, framing is like a divine skill. Of framing, wow, I am this evolving human being living in this ultra generous universe that's gifting me every moment. How we frame our lives and our thoughts, we're so low level on the framing. So we don't give ourselves enough credit. So everybody just take a bunch of credit right now. We're way more than we think we are. Okay. Now, my favorite things, which I call vibrational stacking. I'm sure you've talked about sound and vibration. Have you all hit on that in the summit?
Only a little bit.
Power of sound, like that's to me, that's like in a big picture, the future of medicine is vibration. And of course, we hear about the med beds and we hear about all of this technology coming online where it's really just frequency. I mean, I think we kind of know that we're heading towards that. stuff's going to be coming out in the near future, I believe. I hope. And then, so there's sound, but also just the sound of clearing the room with like I have these bells and crystal sound things that just clear the room, and they just put a frequency. That frequency is palpable, and it affects our cells because it rebundles our DNA in this organized, like think of your cell as a globe. It's got all this chaos going into it. You do a sound gong, and all of a sudden the geometry of your cell is like organized into a beautiful shape or a star or something. It's all geometry, it's all sound. So any kind of beautiful sound like that is very powerful. Decrees, you know, I love decrees. I write books about decrees. Like I am the virtuous frequency of impeccability, you know, just these decrees, you're literally creating that reality. And check this out. So if you're a code of light up there in the universe and you're like, how do I get into that human down there? The vibration or the code is going to come down. It's going to turn into something we can recognize. It's going to form into a code and into a word that can go into our brain because we get words, and then the words come out through our mouth and its breath manifests. So that literally we're speaking the codes that were meant and making it manifest. Power of decrees.
So what if we are not speaking, you know, words, decrees that are like, what words, decrees should we be speaking? So you were just saying, I am. So is I am the right place to start? Like, again, self-awareness.
Yeah, I am is a declaration. It's a great declaration.
And then notice what we're filling in after that, right?
Well, there's also stuff that's already been written. There's also these sacred texts that are out there with the decrees, the Saint Germain decrees. There's a lot of books on decrees that already have this, that already pack a punch. But that's how it separates it from an affirmation. An affirmation is an intention. A decree is a God-smacking declaration, resounding. You're declaring.
And, you know, you said something just a few moments ago about frequency and about sound, and kind of the sound activation, because if we think of resonance, right? So as you were saying, how the cells, the DNA can literally kind of take, so cells can go from, in essence, chaos to structure with that sound. It's that coherence again. It's coming into kind of vibrational coherence with the sound. And so now I'm thinking about power of words. So when we are audibly speaking, we are creating a frequency and a resonance. And so to me, that's part of it, right? The quickening, if you will, the quickening of the activation of the decrees. It's one thing to think up here, and yet to speak brings in that sound element. So as you're saying stacking, to me, I'm going, oh, of course, now I'm going to stack also this frequency, clear the room, use my own words, make these decrees, spend time in light to be able to take in more light. And whether I consciously understand it or not, I am activating into a new state. What are some things that I might notice as I'm doing this?
Have you ever noticed in life, I love this all, like every now and then you just kind of get lazy, like, man, I'm gonna get a Coke and a cheeseburger and I'm gonna go trash talk with my friend for a while, and I do that. So like all of a sudden your frequency just, and all of a sudden you're like, your life just gets dirty, like, and then all of a sudden you go, or it can be a very subtle degree, like, oh my God, I didn't meditate into my highest level this morning. You know, depending on where you're at, like we're constantly kind of scanning our vibrational diet for what the food, everything going in, because we know through epigenetics, we're absorbing all that. So one thing is to keep that really clear and to just constantly work in every aspect of up leveling, like be aware, like that book, Atomic Habits. I love that book. And it teaches like every single thing is not just get rid of a bad habit. It's like everything becomes a good habit. Like when I brush my teeth, I floss now. Actually, I don't, but I'm trying to get there. I'm working on that. And that's full disclosure on that. But anyway, so all of these things are all aspects of this, correct? And I want to keep going with some other ideas too.
Please, please.
Okay, another one that I think is huge that people may or may not talk about is mission certainty. Because knowing why you're here on planet Earth let's say this, purpose is an organizing principle of life. Think about when you have your purpose,
Yeah.
the
And
organization of life.
a lot of people get stuck here. They kind of go on this, well, what is my purpose? And how do I know what my purpose is? And what if I don't have a purpose? And you're
That's
right.
a disorganizing principle. You're literally disorganizing your field by confusion. And then when you figure out why you're here, everything cascades around that purpose, right? You know why you're getting up. You know why you're doing this. Like, I think that's huge. I think people forget how important that is. Let's see what else. So mission certainty is big.
Well, let me ask you really quickly, Giselle, and I don't mean to interrupt you. So mission certainty, because I know you do a lot of work with your clients on this. So what is a foundational way? So let's say right now, I don't know what my purpose is. I'd love to figure it out. I've just been living life by, I've just been doing, and things just seem to work out okay, but I don't really know what my purpose is. Where would you have someone begin to get a sense of that?
That's pretty tricky because, first of all, they're very complex. Our destinies, they unfold over time. We get hints. It's not, it's like this complex thing, but we can align with this desired perception of ourself, which is along the line. It's a trajectory of our destiny. So I would say get a destiny reading. Like, that changed my life when I got one. I didn't listen, and for 6 years, and I went, oh my God, they were right. But, I do destiny readings for people. I'm not just promoting my course, Iconic Branding, but that's like, why you're here. You're aligned. You fall in love with this idea of yourself that you're like, that's who I've always wanted to be. Can I really be her? Oh my God, I want to be her. So then your work, where your energy goes, all that just kind of.
Yes.
And you know the power of that. You're very focused on your mission.
Yeah.
Very focused.
Well, and I love that you said it's complex and unfolds over time. And I think that's the biggest thing I want people to recognize. And of course, and we're still talking spiritual epigenetics and, really kind of the spiritual activation of our genetic blueprint and code. And this code is this connection, right, to source, whatever you want to call that. We are not taking this in a religious conversation, but it's this recognition that how did we get here? What is this code from? Like billions of years, it's ancient, and it has all this information from all these other generations. We are literally every king and queen and prophet and master that has ever walked the earth, kind of all bundled into this information that is inside of our cells. It helps to produce anything we need anytime we need it. And what determines what it's going to produce is the quality of the signal being sent into the cell. And so now as we're looking at this, and so even mission certainty, unfolding over time, life unfolds over time, awareness unfolds over time. It's not a one and done. Longevity is a journey of new moments unfolding over time. So let us all have a bit of grace and courtesy with ourselves to realize none of this is a one and done. And it's not just, oh, this is what it is and this is what it stays. You are an evolutionary being, you, me, we, all of us together. And so I love that you brought that up, and I want to thank you for that. And I just really wanted to point that out because I know too often in the work that we both do, a lot of people, we get really stuck in a point about thinking it's this static end point. So it unfolds over time.
I love how you explain that. That's really good. And I want to add one more thing to that. So when we think about, oh, wow, I need a greater connection to light and spirituality to upgrade my longevity codes, et cetera, which is true. However, guess what? Another vibrational stacking is this word we hear a lot called embodiment. So I can be a spiritual person and sit in Sedona and just meditate on the vortex every day and channel books and thinking I'm there or whatever. But guess what? That is not all of it. We got to go down off the mountain. We got to be real human beings. We got to get in there, mix it up, have the full human experience. That's the other thing that informs the cells. Fully living, fully getting, like fully immersing into this sensual dimension here on earth. And that's where it's at. So there's no more monkhood to reach that. You got to do the other part too. You got to like fully engage, which I love. And I spend a lot of time in a spiritual journey thinking that that the more I just stayed there, and actually the people that are staying in this like really cloistered, sometimes you're called to do that for a period of time, but then eventually you got to get off the mountain, go into the village, make some noise, get your frequency out, your piece of the puzzle, plug it into the world. Here's what I got. Here's my superpower. What's yours? You know, you got to do that.
Mm.
Got to eat the Italian food. You know what I mean? Drink the
Yes, you
wine.
do. You've got to live fully. And that's what you just said. You know, we are here as human beings having a human experience. And part of this conversation of what does longevity look like? What can it feel like? What can it be like? It's this understanding of I want to live fully now as well as I can and for as long as I can. So that means mastering it in this moment now, beginning to play with it, to allow it, to invite it, to express it and experience it. And remember, there's really no wrong way. It's just
Oh,
inviting us in.
and the more coherent you get, the more permission you give yourself, and your life's gonna look a lot different, maybe even wilder, because like you're in there, you don't have any permission. You got full permission. Like, you know, you got the word from up high, like, yeah, go live.
Go
And
live, go live. And you
let
know,
reality rise.
that's so foundational, because again, there is this, like, we're all like, yes, we want to optimize. Yes, we want to have this great life. Yes, we want to be healthy and strong and love our life and live it fully. And so we innately know we are here to live fully. And yet we limit ourselves knowingly or unknowingly in so many ways. It was so interesting. A great interview here on the summit that I really want to invite everybody, if you haven't seen it, watch the interview with Meg Foley. We talked about the ageless mindset. And it was so fascinating how quickly, and we did a real-time coaching session with me, and how quickly I was kind of realizing these spots of, again, where my brain was making sense of its current reality. And that was, in a way, keeping me from this fuller expression. And we all do it. It all happens to all of us. So it's not like anybody's wrong or, you know, oh, forget it. But this word, live fully, that's what we are here to do. And so, Giselle, you're talking to us about these stacks, right? So it's sound, it's the meditation, it's mission certainty. Give us a few more things. I know we only have a little bit more time with you, and you're just giving us, it's fun. This feels just filled with vitality and vibration, and it's so fun. What else do we need to know today to really activate ourselves?
Okay, so a couple of things. I'm going to talk about my morning protocol for activation, but I also want to say, I'm sure you've talked about, you know, sleeping, eating, breath, the elegance of breath. I think of like Kuan Yin riding the dragon. I have that little statue, and that's like how we want to go through life. So we're like living these full lives, but we're also very elegantly holding our breath small and like this chaos in this world that's going on. So I just love that image. That's how we breathe through this chaotic time of humanity 2020. We're on that dragon, we're breathing elegantly. I love that. And there's one more, and that is like how you start your day. I mean, how you start your day. It's huge. So for me, I wake up and I because of my living situation, I don't have another room where I meditate. I light some frankincense and I sit back in my bed where I meditate, and non-negotiable at least 20 minutes until I can actually, and I practice. Sometimes I listen to meditation, sometimes it's just music, sometimes it's nothing, but I practice just like going into my heart and like just activating that heart space. Music is really good for that, whatever moves you to that. And the deeper you go into that 0 point, I just love this new 0 point, which is so deep in our heart, the brighter your fields become. And it doesn't make any sense. Like the deeper you go in that heart space, you start brightening your fields, and you feel it's like, man, I want to just wear this today and have this energy and go do this and attack that and do, like, you start brightening all this ferociousness for life by brightening your fields. And that comes from going deep in the heart. Isn't that a great formula? Yeah. And so non-negotiable until your heart is activated do you get up, because nothing really happens without coherence of the heart. We know that. Sure, you've talked about that a lot. So that's number one. And then number two, I also like to practice going into my heart and turning it into a star. Just become a star every morning with your God spark. get those 7 chambers of God's spark, the whole heartbeat of God, and just turn it, go up, go in every direction, blow it out, become a star, and just start there. Can you feel that? I can see in your face. You just like activated your become a star.
Because it's all at once, right? It's just like that. And I have to share with you, you know, that personally, having the pleasure and the honor to be your friend as well as a peer for several years, something that always I just admire about you is that you carry this light-heartedness. Like, nothing's too serious. Even if the world is apparently crashing down around us, it's like you always feel very buoyant to me, very buoyant, right? And playful and confined. So this flexibility, and flexibility is a concept we've talked about a lot, metabolic flexibility, for example. And you just really exude that. And that's something that, you know, for me, you are one of my own teachers when I can see you just being playful and light and just like, and then I'll turn the mirror on myself and go, am I that? Because, you know, I'm like, I feel really serious right now. I feel too serious. I want more of that, right? And so I think it's just like we get to be in this journey together, each and every one of us. You know, this conversation is important. And I really want to encourage each person watching and listening to, again, just like, there's so much more that we don't know than what we do know. And if we stay open with curiosity and a more playful heart, right? Willing to activate that heart. I love it. Become a star. Like you said, give yourself more credit than you are, because you are so much more than you even realize, each and every one of us. You know, and if we can think about even if you don't believe what I'm telling you, if you can just think about this philosophically, about the DNA. My dog is here. Hi, baby. You coming to talk about this? Yes, we're speaking truth. That the DNA represents this very ancient coding. It is a blueprint. I mean, you know, when we really just kind of sit back and say, how does this all work? We're learning a lot, but there's still more that we don't know. And so why not activate your heart? What harm could come of it? Why not allow yourself to contain and carry more light? Why not allow yourself to expand into the activated human that you are and you're here meant to be? Giselle, you continue to inspire me, and I am in total gratitude.
Thank you.
I want everybody to know you've mentioned your Codes of Immortality, which is a phenomenal book. And where can they go ahead and access that? Because it's a great tool.
I'll give you a link to put. I give that away for free. And
Great.
if anyone is really confused about their destiny, let me help you. Let me help you dial that in and just give you a glimpse of your soul fulfilling destiny. I love to do that work. So yeah, and I want to add one thing to your beautiful clothes. Don't forget, after you do that, go outside, look at the sun, let those codes go directly into your eyes, into your pineal. You'll sleep better at night. I don't know everybody says, don't look at the sun. Why not? I don't know any studies that say that's bad. Who said that? Look at the sun as much as you can, right into it. That's what I like. It's really true, because we turn into that. The sun is a star also. We are turning into a star as well, just like the sun.
Oh, how fun. We are turning into a star. So go activate your light. And over at GiselleCoy.com, and we'll make sure that there's a link. They can find out more about you and all of the incredible work that you do. It's within each and every one of us, our own unique, individualized potential. So activate your DNA to express your greater longevity path, so that you can look and feel and live your life optimized to 120 and well beyond, my friends. Thank you, Giselle. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love and appreciate you deeply. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. More great interviews coming up next here on the summit. And until then, I'm Dr. Melissa. I'll see you in the next session.